Welcome to Rebellious Ruth. Yes. We have an amazing guest with us this evening. He is very politically opinionated and loves South Africa and also South Korea. So, let's get to it. And I'd like to introduce Brett Sessums.
Hey, how's it going?
Brett?
Doing pretty good.
Pardon?
I said glad to be here.
Excellent. I'm so glad you could join me. So yes, I'm wearing my American colors, and I think right now I'd really like to be an American, because
are right now because the ANC is messing up the country. They're trying to flee to America or Canada or UK, Australia, New Zealand, you name it.
Yeah, if you could get anywhere, even Canada. I don't know if you've had plenty contact with Canadians in America, obviously. I'm sure you do interact. I don't know if they come it sounds a bit silly, but come as far as Mississippi. I think a lot of Canadians go to New York and Michigan and Wisconsin.
They do. I've met a few Canadians in my lifetime, but typically not many. But I have met a few. But yeah, a lot of Canadians won't typically dual citizenship because in America, if you're broke, typically you're screwed. And in Canada, it's inferior health care. But you do get, compared to America, but you still get health care. You still get some perks. But there's not many wealthy people in Canada. It's a strong middle class. So a lot of them want to make it big in America. And then if it doesn't work out, they want to go back to Canada.
Okay. What is the perception? You talk about wealthy. So I would say in South Africa, yes, you get your super wealthy. And I think a lot of people are sort of more middle class and have had opportunity to enrich themselves. And especially now amongst the Black community, you go to a private school and you see all the Mercedes and Jeep Cherokees and Discovery Land Rover. And there are a lot of Black drivers. And I say, well, good for them. How many tenders they put through to the ANC to get that money, or how many businesses they opened up, who knows? But I'm very, as a South African sitting here who has a 15-year-old son, I'm very frustrated and I'm very angry because Cyril makes like, oh, this COVID thing has basically put us in this situation and that situation. We've been going backwards prior to COVID. And I'm so hurtful. And we were talking about the only things he spoke about was agriculture being like the forefront. Meanwhile, he's forgotten about all the mineral rights and all that sort of jazz. He's clearly a touchy subject for him. And you mentioned chickens, which we'll get to now, but we don't have agricultural schools. We've got normal academic schools. There's no major agriculture. Like the way he speaks, you think we've been preparing this for decades, that all of a sudden you'll reach your qualification or you'll come out of school and you'll be able to start farming. We'll be Zimbabwe in another 10 years' time. It's like a shit show.
Yeah, and with this whole expropriation without compensation, they tried it in Zimbabwe, and you can't give land to people who have had no prior farm training, who have never been to agricultural school, and just expect it all to work out. It's not.
Right, you have to know the basics.
MP Lakota had pointed that out. He supports expropriation, but with compensation, number one. I'm not saying I do or don't. He says you cannot. You have to have agricultural training. You have to have a desire for farming, and you have to be able to make a profit on the land before you can get the land. And that's not something he has addressed. I mean, you want EWOC, but you have no agricultural schools. They don't work out.
Yeah, exactly. I see Vanessa's joined us. Hello, V. How are you? Glad to see you. Vanessa Perry's also, she was on my chat show on Tuesday. This week's gone so quickly. And she's also got a lot to say and a lot about some fascinating stuff and the whole awakening thing, a lot about what happens on Chris White's Telegram group. So what I love, while I was watching it, I was tuning in to Ronaldo, and then I also switched over to Ramon Cabernac on Morning Shot. If you haven't subscribed to them, please subscribe to them. I'm not saying it to you, Brett. I'm saying it to anyone who may be watching. I don't know if he hits 100,000 subscribers. I really hope he did. But he's so funny. Oh, my gosh. I was in stitches. That's my little rant. It's just crazy. Like the way he speaks, you think, oh yeah, we all trained, we all know exactly what vegetables and fruits to plant for what season and what parts of South Africa are great for what. And he talks utter rubbish. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I got my pad right here, so if anybody wants to ask me questions, I can see the comments or the questions as well.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant,
Uh,
excellent. I don't know how many people have tuned in. I didn't see any notifications. So anyway, but you never know. I usually do get quite a few views afterwards, so that's all good. So yes, so I wanted to sort of compare things with you from an American and a South African standpoint, even though it's worlds apart, or should I say, yeah, first world, second world, last world for us. um, but yes, like I'd like to say to the ANC, sick. This is the Kifness. If you haven't seen the Kifness, he's really, really cool. He makes great music, and that's his little perfume. So yeah. So let's start. Okay, so South Africa and America also had wars in the beginning of their history. Yes.
yeah, when we first became a nation, we went to war with the British Empire. It's kind of same as the Afrikaners. But at the same time, we did similar to the Afrikaners in terms when Jan Smuts made the Union of South Africa with the UK. We didn't make peace with the UK as quickly as you guys did, but we still made peace with them, and they became a strong ally over time. But we don't, compared to South Africa, we don't know much about British imperialism. We went to war over taxation without representation, and I supported the Americans breaking away from the British Empire. They didn't have any representation in Parliament, British Parliament, with what Britain was doing to us. But at the same time, our people were never thrown into concentration camps for rebelling against the British Empire. That did happen in the Boer War, and that was a scar on British history for that to happen.
Yeah, yeah. I think in a way, well, I'm not excusing the Boer War or the concentration camps, but I think one of the redeeming factors that Britain did do was abolish slavery, especially at the Horn of Africa. Um, they were one of the first ones to break down all those what were they, fortresses on the south coast of Sierra Leone and all of those. Like, I mean, the one case that I think of is Amistad, like that movie, the ship Amistad in the movie, and
Yeah,
it's just
call it in the U.S. Amistad. Yes.
Yeah, Amistad. What did I say? Amistad?
Amistad. I mean, call it in the U.S. Amistad, but I'm going to touch on that. Well, actually, a lot of black soldiers that fought for the British in the American Revolution, most did manual labor, and the British under General Cornwallis sent them back to their American masters. They weren't free. It was broken promises, but some were freed, and they were sent to Sierra Leone. They were just basically dropped off. And in Sierra Leone nowadays, a lot of them are descendants of black British soldiers. And you saw with the film Blood Diamond, a lot. Sierra Leone's more stable now, but it went through a huge period of the Civil War, and that's why Britain had helped Sierra Leone in the Civil War and helped them throughout that, because it was basically guilt of what Britain did to them in the past.
Yeah, no, it's sorry, I'm just putting it on that volume. No, and the fact that, and I mean, also America, they were terrified. I mean, they a lot of their wealth had come from the sugar plantations and the cotton. And I mean, sugar was it was a Bitcoin back then in the 17 and 1800s. I mean, it was literally like a new Bitcoin that hit the world, because up until then there was no sugar, and there had been honey. And I mean, I watched a documentary how in that time it affected people so badly that a lot of people died from tooth decay. And when I say die, not you can't die from tooth decay, but their teeth got so bad that they eventually couldn't eat and they starved to death. I mean, very grim.
It happened, but it just wasn't the British. If you know the African nation of Liberia today, that's on the border with Sierra Leone, there was this organization in America called the American Colonization Societies, which was committed to freeing black slaves in America, but sending them back to Africa. And Liberia was under the rule of independent tribes back then. They had their own tribal rule. It wasn't a set nation, but they purchased some land off the coast of Liberia, and they sent about 14,000 American slaves to Liberia.
Mm.
And the ex-slaves were angry with a lot of the African tribes that were there because a lot of them were engaging in the slave trade. They were killing and enslaving each other in tribal warfare. And America abolished the slave trade in 1808, and Britain abolished slavery altogether. So that's why the ex-slaves came in. They were called Americo-Liberians, and they colonized a lot of the African tribes. And it was so about Liberia nowadays is about 3 to 5% descendants of U.S. slaves, and about 95 to 97% descendants of the African tribes that were already there: the Mandingo, the Vai, the Capel, various other African tribes.
Okay, brilliant. Sure. I love your information. Your history is, I follow an Instagram page which is called Weird History, and I'm sure they have a YouTube channel. And there's always little anecdotes and little parts that they touch on. And I always find it so fascinating. I think Vanessa's got a question. Oh yeah, she says Brits nearly wiped out the Boers. Yeah, but look, they a little, as they said, hulle het hulle gas gegee, die boere, ja nee, verseker. Actually went one of the last plays I went and watched at the amazing Pretoria State Theatre, which was an amazing theatre. I mean, South Africa, people, I think a lot of European countries look at South Africa and think like we're like Australia, where all the convicts ended up in Australia. But there's actually a sense of real culture when it comes to South Africans. You know, we've got such an amazing vibe with different cultures and such richness when it comes to heritage. And I went to go and watch a production called De La Rey, and I was in tears afterwards. But it was all about the Boer War and how, you know, they won that battle. And yeah, amazing. Vanessa wants to know, do Americans know what is happening in South Africa? So I would say,
If it was a yes or no question, I would say no, but we're learning more because there's a lot of anger right now with the ANC government because of the 501v2 COVID-19 strain. Because, I mean, sometimes viruses just evolve, but the ways, Fakile and Balula did not regulate the taxi industry during that time. More Americans are asking me what's going on in South Africa because they want to know why the virus may have evolved there. Because all we knew before that was, oh, the ANC had a lockdown, they've curbed the spread of the COVID, rah, ANC. But now, because we know the virus came from South Africa, the evolved form, and they account for the new strain accounts for 90% of South Africa's current COVID cases. They want to know what's going on in South Africa. So there's a growing anger and resentment around the world for the ANC because the South African strain has hit Maryland, it's hit South Carolina, and there have now been 2 new cases in California, one in Alameda County and one in Santa Clara County in the northern part of California in the San Francisco Bay Area. So there's a lot of anger with Fakile and Balula not regulating the taxi industry, and a lot of anger of like banning people from going to the beach, but still allowing funerals of 49 people. And Bloomberg Business, who's typically a liberal business website, they touched on that and criticized a lot of parts of the ANC lockdown.
Mm-hmm. No, so I'll tell you a little secret. I believe the main economy of this country is the taxi industry. It's crazy at that. And yes, I mean, it sounds stupid, but I think if the taxi industry says it's red, then everyone believes it's red because they are such a force to be reckoned with. I don't know the figures exactly, but it's a massive, massive industry. Massive, huge. I mean, every other corner has a taxi. And when I talk about taxis for your American viewers, it's actually it's called a combi minibus. It's like remember those, like a good hippie van, like a
I've seen pictures of South African taxis. Most taxis there are like a van. And because many South Africans, because of the economy, can't afford a car, I hate to say it, but many can't. A lot of them, to get to work or to get wherever they need to go to see family, they pack about 15 to 20 people in a taxi because that's the only thing they can do. And it's just that contributes, though, to the spread of the COVID-19.
Yeah, no, sure. And yeah, they demanded that they still, I mean, they were the only industry. I mean, okay, yes, people need to work, but the punishment or the severity of what they went through was minimal during lockdown. Other industries like obviously the wine industry, the at one stage the tobacco industry, the restaurant industry have all been literally devastated, and I'm sure in America as well.
Well, okay. The restaurant industry has suffered, particularly the dine-in restaurants. Now, I've tried to go to not sit-down restaurants, but I will go to there and order takeout because I believe that restaurants are dangerous for the spread of the COVID-19. And I go through drive-thrus every chance I get in fast food to try to help the restaurant industry survive. But in South Africa, the restaurant industries were allowed to open, but what really pissed me off, frankly, is that new rule that the ANC implemented. The Department of Labor requires all restaurant workers and owners to contribute so many rand to this new panel in the Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor basically says you have to give bonuses for people, whether you have the money or not, if your worker has a clean uniform. And
which is a silly excuse.
Yeah.
It is, and I can understand why it pisses you off, but I'm just going to interject here. I did a lot of waitering when I was in my youth, when I was studying, and because I had to pay my way through studies and stuff. And I was living on my own. I had to pay rent, look after myself. And the truth is that restaurants, the restaurant business, yes, I know, especially for this rule to be implemented now, it should have been implemented years ago, eons ago, not now when it's
losing money nowadays. They can't.
Correct. So the timing of it is a shit show. But the truth of the matter is, restaurant workers don't get anything. They don't even get a salary. I don't know if they have a separate agreement with the owner of the establishment. It's not like in America. Like in America, you don't really tip, apparently. Is that true? Because the waiters get an actual salary, a wage.
Okay, waiters, bartenders, and waitresses on their salary make about $2 an hour because they depend on their tips, but they still have to make a salary, even though it's very low, even if they don't get tips. But the kitchen staff, the hostess, the hostess, they all get salaries because they're behind the scenes workers and they have to get a salary by law.
Yeah. Look, it's the worst time they could have implemented something like this. And I think deep down it's just another way to mooch money out of the taxpayer as well. I mean, it's an absolute, yeah. I can't even listen to Swirl. He talks the biggest. He is such a disappointment, something to admit. So we were so upset with Zuma because we knew he'd been stealing all those years and that this country was being literally raped from all its wealth and it just being totally sacked by Zuma's cronies. But when Cyril came on, when it was the SONA, when Cyril was going to be the president, I was actually sort of so overwhelmed with emotion for hope that he would set the country right, that he would put the country on the right path, that he would stop the SOEs and the billions of rands going into SAA and all the rest. And he never did. It just carried on. And I'm very disappointed and hurt as a South African. I mean, there's no one more, I think, like we spoke about, certain people in the area, in the era who tried to abolish apartheid, who stood up, Helen Suzman, Joe Slovo, all of those people. And hey, Amy's just joined us. Hey, Amy, I've got to get your comments. We're just in our debate. How's it, girl? Brett, Amy's here.
Okay. Hey, Amy, how are you?
Cool. So yeah, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. Like we all had hope that this country would come together, whether you were pink, orange, colored, white, black, Indian, wherever you came from, we'd amalgamate and really come together. And it's an absolute nightmare. If you
vote for it because Cyril had criticized Zuma's position on AIDS, where he said if you shower after you have sex, you shouldn't get AIDS. And Cyril criticized that part. He also believes Zuma may have raped somebody. But so I had some hope, not much, but some. But when Cyril took power, Cyril also made the South African Airlines situation worse. He commandeered one South African Airlines planes that fits like 50 to 60 people, but it was just only for him and about 12 of his cronies, 12 of his cabinet members to just fly all over South Africa just for the hell of it. So South African Airways has gotten worse under him. Also, the currency was in junk status when he came to power, and it's still in junk status. It was in junk status before the COVID-19 hit, so he can't blame COVID-19 for this situation.
Exactly.
I mean, he was already in junk status, and then now and then he mentioned Mandela being released from Victor versus the prison. I mean, I was happy about that when it happened, but he brought that up first part of his speech. That was in the past. This is the present. You know, we're dealing with a completely different situation, and it was like he kind of subconsciously or secretly tried to blame South Africa's current issues.
Always. I mean, I said it on Ronaldo's stream. I said, you know, in the comments, I said, those are the words. The words are, you know, apartheid. I can't think now what I said, but it's apartheid. It's poverty. It's land appropriation. It's, you know, these trigger words that he keeps regurgitating. Move the hell on. Build a bridge, but the ANC will never do that. They will never do that because they know those are their joker cards. They have to present those cards, and they'll come through. I just hope that this next elections they really get a grootskrik, as they say. You know what a grootskrik is?
If there is an election, let me touch on that. If there is an election, let me explain this.
Okay.
Okay, I think the ANC wants it to spread. One, they didn't regulate the taxi industry. And number two, they didn't enforce the lockdown in ANC-friendly areas. I saw things of the lockdown in ANC apartments that were just stacked up one floor after another, and people were just socializing, not wearing a mask. And
they still do.
People were unresponsive. That happened. I think they want to declare a state of emergency, to declare martial law and suspend this next election because there is so much anger with the ANC going on right now. And opposition parties, even like the IFP and the DA, are talking about going to coalition with one another, even though they differ vastly in a lot of things, even aligning with the ACDP and a lot of others. And I think the ANC will lose power if there's an election. And I think they don't want the COVID to stop, because they think that's the only way they can hang on to power, is
Makes
to declare
sense.
law.
Makes sense.
And suspend the election.
Yeah, you know, it's unbelievable how they've taken this situation and really ridden it. It's unbelievable. It's actually it's a true, I'm gonna say it, fucking nightmare. But yes, I think that's a little bit enough for politics. I wanted to talk about you and who you are. So you studied. Okay, so you're born in Mississippi. Okay.
Born in Mississippi, lived there for 18 years, and then I went to study criminal justice at Auburn University. It's my alma mater right here, Auburn University.
Okay, cool.
And studied there, and but then I went on to sign on to be a police cadet in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is about 4 hours from where I grew up. But I injured my back, herniated disc in my lower back. I had prior injuries from playing American football years ago in high school. So I went back to school, but not to Auburn. I went to Mississippi College in Clinton, Mississippi, and I learned how to teach English as a foreign language. And so that's when I went to South Korea. I taught for the South Korean Air Force for 2 years. I taught there for 2 years. And then now I'm back, and I was working as a security guard until my mother got sick with cancer. She passed away back in August of 22nd of 2020. And then my dad's got some heart issues, but I just got the second dosage of my Pfizer vaccine. I got it yesterday. I'm talking to you, no shortness of breath, no bad reactions. And probably in about a week or two, I'm going to call my old boss and see if I can go back to work.
Okay. Good stuff. Well, I hope it all works out for you.
About 10 days before the vaccine kicks in completely with its immunity.
Okay. Vanessa's saying, no, Brett. Yeah, you know how a lot of the South Africans feel about the vaccine, yeah. But we're not persecuting anyone. It's your right. You have a right to choose.
No, it's fine. And Vanessa, if I was South African, and this goes for Amy too, if Amy's here, I can understand where you guys are coming from, because they were going to purchase AstraZeneca, but the government stupid policies allowed the COVID-19 to evolve, I firmly believe. And then they scrapped the AstraZeneca program, and they're going with Johnson & Johnson. And Johnson & Johnson is about 50 to 60% effective against the 501b2 strain. Otherwise, the South African strain. But they could have Pfizer vaccine, which is what I had, and that's about 70 to 80% effective against it. But their public hospitals don't have the cooling units because they've embezzled so much.
The public hospitals, let me explain to you, don't have anything. I think they've got old beds from like 1960.
They embezzled the public health care funds. They've been doing it for years, probably 20 years. Sure. They've been embezzling a lot of those public health funds, putting it in their pockets so they can buy mansions in predominantly white parts of town, by the way.
There's nothing left. There's nothing left. If you're in a car accident, I knew a girl, I went to help a friend who's a good friend, was in a major car accident. She was bruised. We saw her the day afterwards. She couldn't walk. Okay, any normal person would still be in the hospital. They sent her home with the equivalent of paracetamol. Okay, paraflippencetamol. Hey Ashley, how's it going? Vanessa is like, I'm more worried for you. No. Okay, so you speak about Mississippi. So when I think of Mississippi, and I know that people overseas, and we say we're from Africa, like, ooh, do you have lions like walking in your garden? So when I think of the Mississippi, I think of the river, right? The Mississippi, the great Mississippi River.
Yeah, right? Actually, that's a funny story. Where I was born and raised was Vicksburg, Mississippi, and that was a key battle in the American Civil War. And the reason that it was because Vicksburg's the closest medium-sized city in the U.S. to the Mississippi River. So Vicksburg basically controls the Mississippi River, and it was a vital point. So I lived in the town closest to the Mississippi River for the longest time.
Okay. Actually, could you swim? Is it like...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I interrupted you. Carry on.
Not Mississippians know this story, but we are tied to Africa in a way, not just because of our large African-American population, but 40 miles south of Vicksburg, we are in Jefferson County. My father had land there, and we would go to this old country store when we ever went to work or till the land. And next to it was Prospect Hill Plantation. And Prospect Hill Plantation had an owner named Isaac Ross, and he treated his slaves very well, as far as a slave owner could. He didn't break up the families. He taught them how to read and write. He freed his slaves after his death. But Mississippi at the time wouldn't allow freed slaves to stay in Mississippi. They had to be freed in another state before they came down there. So he went to the American Colonization Society and had his slaves relocate to Liberia. And many of the slaves' descendants live in Liberia to this day.
Yeah.
And and there was a colony or a county in Liberia called Mississippi for the longest time. Actually, the town of Greenville, Liberia, there's Greenville, Liberia, and a Greenville, Mississippi. They were named after Judge James Green, who was another judge that freed his slaves at his death and relocated them to Liberia. And he persuaded other wealthy whites in Mississippi to do the same thing.
Okay. Do you sometimes get into... Okay, wait, we were talking about the Mississippi. So, I don't know the exact stats on the thing. I didn't do too much homework on it. But, I mean, are there beautiful places and enclaves where you can swim? Is it like, are there holiday areas, resorts? Is there lots of traffic with regard to... Or is it like the Thames?
Okay. We're a small state with about 3 million.
Hudson.
Or we're about one of the lower in terms of population. But as far as tourism, I grew up as a local in my hometown, but there are casinos there, and the Vicksburg National Military Park, because it was such a key battle in the Civil War, there's a lot of tourism there. Now, it really didn't affect me as much because I lived there as a local, but you go to the Mississippi Gulf Coast on the ocean, the beach is better than before, but it's still not very good, but we have casinos there. So gambling is a major industry in Mississippi. There's also a Choctaw Native American Indian reservation, not Indians from India, Native Americans, out in Philadelphia, Mississippi, and they have casinos there, and the reservation's ran by the federal government, not the state government, and they get a lot of tourism there. So we do, believe it or not, Mississippi does have tourism, but as far as the Mississippi River goes, I like it, but it's an ugly river. But we were able to move a lot of transport from the north on those barges down there. So it's a commerce river. A lot of African rivers, and this is no offense to your viewers, they're beautiful, and I like seeing the waterfalls. But you can't transport much down the African rivers because of a lot of the waterfalls. They're a site. They get a lot of tourism because of it, but it makes it very, very difficult for commerce in a lot of these African rivers. And that's one reason Africa has some of the economic problems they have. They can't help that situation, but that's why. So I prefer my ugly river over y'all's beautiful rivers. No offense, because of the economy.
No, sure. I think the greatest thing for Africa is the tourism and wildlife, and education is so key. And obviously the abolishment of poverty, but the one needs to really help with the other, and of course COVID stuffed that up. But all right, so yeah, we get into so many topics. It's like a big tree with lots of branches. We can go in any direction. Right, so okay, Mississippi, and then so again another dish that comes to mind is clam chowder. So freshwater clams, and I remember in Forrest Gump, I think he was fishing on the Mississippi as well. He bought a boat, remember?
Yeah, no, I've seen Forrest Gump, but no, the thing is, okay, that's a movie. Our biggest industry in Mississippi is catfish. And this is one reason there are a lot of Mississippians supported Trump, because the catfish will be caught in Mississippi, but then the catfish will go all the way to China to be manufactured. And angered a lot of Mississippians. They wanted the catfish plants to be processed and manufactured here. They would go off to China to be processed and come back to Mississippi. And it rose the price of catfish up really badly. So that's why a lot of Mississippians backed Donald Trump. And I did too. I voted for Trump twice. So that's okay. Catfish is our biggest industry. If you want clam chowder, our biggest clam chowder that we get comes from Boston, Massachusetts. They have some of the best clam chowder that we have. Get a lot of freshwater.
Definitely not kosher. So what is in a chowder? Do you cook? Do you cook?
No, I'm not a very good cook. If I cook something, it'll blow the kitchen up. So I may.
I'll give you lessons. I'll teach you how to make burros.
No, I was going to say a lot of lobster comes from Maine. So a lot of our lobster comes from Maine, but I don't eat lobster. I like the taste of it, okay, but it's very expensive, and I try to save my money.
Maine is what? Maine is West Coast, yes?
Ooh, Maine is northeast, the furthest state in the northeast in the United States. It's on the border with Quebec, Canada.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Speakers, not many, but you got a few French speakers in Maine who can't speak much English because they're right on the border with Quebec.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm just, maybe your east and my west is different, or I'm getting it confused. So is Maine above New York or below, or is it above San Francisco?
Maine is above New York. Okay.
Yes. So when I say west, because for us,
California,
New York. Yeah. So New York is the west, like from an Africa perspective. New York is west.
From an African perspective, yes.
Yes. And LA and San Francisco is east.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because Maine is, like they have rough seas and cold Atlantic oceans, and of course those shrimp and crayfish and all of that, love them cold seas. So yeah.
Louisiana, Mississippi, shrimping on the saltwater seas below us is a major industry. And a lot of the people in Louisiana, we call them Cajuns, white people of French descent, they will put a lot of herbs and spices on a lot of their shrimp, but a lot of Cajun food is very popular even in Mississippi. So you have some Cajuns that have moved to Mississippi to set up New Orleans-style restaurants. New Orleans is a major city in Louisiana. So shrimping is a major industry as well. And actually, I don't know how it started, but there's a lot of Vietnamese shrimpers in Biloxi, Mississippi. A lot of them fled after the communists took over Vietnam, and a lot of our shrimpers are Vietnamese as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. And I'm sure now of American Vietnamese. I mean, that's the thing what upsets me. So
Vietnamese American or Americans of Vietnamese ancestry.
Like that's the thing. We're like here in South Africa, I mean, yeah, with the color, I mean, I don't even know if the colors is such a PC term anymore. But I mean, I know people that girl I had on my show, she's from a different kind of mixture of Indian descent. I mean, I'm totally a mutt. I'm a total mixed breed. I've got Russian, French, Scots, and British in my running through my blood veins. I've actually never done one of those DNA tests. I'd actually like to do it, and they sort of plot your genetics. I think that would be incredible. And I think, yeah, if more people did that, they'd realize there's an Afrikaans word called mengelmoes, which means like a mixture, a real mixer pot, a real chowder of of people, and we're not these purebred whatever you get anymore. We're people, and we all want the same thing. Maslow's hierarchical need structure. We all want homes and jobs and safety and education, and hello.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the thing with the Afrikaans population, not all Afrikaners are of Dutch descent. You have Afrikaners of French descent. There were a lot of French Protestants oppressed by the Catholics years ago, so they fled to South Africa to escape religious persecutions. So if you see an African French name, they're descendants of the Huguenots, usually.
Correct.
And then also, I'm not sure how Germans got to South Africa, but there are ones with German surnames whose ancestors came from Germany as well. And there was also a time where whites of Afrikaner descent and whites of English descent intermarried with one another. I met plenty of South Africans who had a father that was Afrikaans and mom was English, or vice versa.
So in my relationship as well, Clint's also got English and Afrikaans mixture in him. And yeah, I'm like a freak. So but like there's even a Portuguese community, especially here in Pretoria. There's an Italian community, especially out in Brits and Hartbeespoort. A lot of people, like America, came to this country for better opportunity, trying to find better, just a better life, a safer life. And there's been issues. And Vanessa says, I'm German, Welsh, Afrikaans, French, and just speak English. My surname is Welsh. Okay, awesome. So, yes, that's the thing. We're a total mixture. And yeah, it's crazy. But, okay, so anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, well, there are in Mississippi, most white Mississippians are descendants of Scots or Irish or British. You have a few people along the Mississippi Gulf Coast in Biloxi and Gulfport with French surnames. Actually, a French explorer named Henry Louis d'Iberville, the town of d'Iberville, Mississippi, next to Biloxi, is named after him. He explored the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and he landed in 1699. That's why Mississippi has the second oldest settlement in the United States. I believe Virginia had first with came there, but Mississippi has the second in 1699.
Okay. That's interesting history. Love you, Brett. So full of history.
Appreciated.
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to make the stream also fun a little bit. Like, it is very awesome learning all these cool things. So we also spoke earlier. Let me just think quickly. Oh yes, like South African products, right? Like you don't find. I remember when I went to England in 2009, I actually stayed in a part of a town, and there was a South African shop. There was, like, you walked in and there was an entire cabinet or fridge with all the South African products. And I was quite impressed, like, wow, this is so cool, because there's such a large South African population in England. And you say in America, not too much?
No, there's not any South African shops or South African restaurants in Mississippi. There are a few South African restaurants in Houston, Texas, but that's like a 6 to 8 hour drive for me, or a 45-minute flight. So one thing I really liked when I visited South Korea the last time, I went the last time as a tourist, and they had this restaurant in Itaewon section of Seoul called Briar Republic. And that was actually the first time I had tried South African food, which I really liked. I tried meat pies, and I forget a lot of the other food that I tried. They had this South African chicken that I really liked, and so that was a really good experience.
Fried chicken.
What'd you say?
It was probably fried chicken.
Yeah, fried chicken, and they also had, I forget the South African wine I drank, and I normally don't like wine. That's not my cup of tea. I prefer beer, but I tried some South African wine from the Cape, and it was really good.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Ashley says, I don't know about Vanessa. My accent is Afrikaans, and I like Brett's accent more. Ha ha. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
the world
I was
don't
kind
think so. Afrikaner accents are rated as the sexiest accents in the world.
of
Afrikaner.
ooh, that Ashley. I can do a few accents of my own. I don't know if you've seen some of the stream, but I can try do my southern accent. I'll be a southern
That's
belle.
a lot of
I'm
Hollywood movies
so
now, particularly in Gone with the Wind. That was an old school movie about the
yes.
South. A lot of people try that accent. Now, typically, most Southerners don't have as thick of an accent as you tried, but yeah, we still have it.
You might not think you have a very, very southern accent. You
Yes,
do.
yeah, I
Yeah,
have a
you
very
do. Just be
Southern accent.
proud, proud. And then I can also talk in an Afrikaans accent. Hey, Ashley, am I getting it right? Yes. But no, I'm not ripping anyone off. I love my culture. I love other cultures. Yes, okay, so back to my questions. Okay, the famous American peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, to us, jelly is that stuff you pour into a mold, okay, and you put it in the fridge and you come out and you eat it with custard. Well, that's the South African way to. What's wrong? Okay, wait, tech guys just telling. Oh, my camera too close. Okay, all right.
Yeah, butter sandwich is one of the most popular sandwiches in America. Now, typically our jelly. Now, some older people make jelly, but typically we get our jelly from the supermarket, and jelly is about like 80 to 90% sugar. Tastes good, but it's not that healthy for you. And a lot of people put grape or strawberry jelly on their breakfast biscuits.
Mm-hmm.
Go to when they get breakfast from the store.
Yeah. So what we have in South Africa, I think, which is the more equivalent of jelly, like it's called, is jam. We call it jam.
Yeah, and we call it jam here as well. I mean, I've heard
Okay.
jam.
Okay, cool, cool. I'm actually gonna try and make some apple compo. I think a compote, or I think it's I don't even know how you say it, compote, like an apple, sort of like a soft apple type of a jam, but more like you have it with desserts and raisin and cinnamon and ice cream and yeah, like sort of like a base for an apple pie. Oh, speaking of pie, also an American dish we always hear about, like American pie. Um, so pies in South Africa is the entire thing is covered, like you spoke about meat pies, is covered in pastry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So am I
Yeah,
like,
no, meat pies actually, and this is the funny story. Now, a lot of Caucasians, a lot of white people like meat pies as well, and the sweet potato pies. But typically, the most popular pie in America is apple pie, but amongst the Caucasian people, because we still make up about 60% of America's population. But amongst the African American people, sweet potato pie is their most popular pie. So the funny story, when a lot of African Americans get asked what's America's most popular pie, they'll say sweet potato pie, but it's really apple pie, and a lot of them laugh when they find out it's apple pie. And like
so
between,
what? Karen, sorry.
I like both of them, but between the two, no offense, I prefer apple pie. But apple pie is like a huge, huge part of my culture and my heritage.
Sure. But is the pie, is it got pastry over it, or is it just sort of made with like a pastry base and then the apple in the middle in the center and then baked like that?
Yeah, it's like a pastry base, and the apple's baked in the center of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's not covered like here in South Africa. We have crust and pastry over everything.
Well, no,
Like,
no, actually, no. I take it back. No, we do have crust and pastry over pretty much all our pie, all the apple pies, as well as the sweet potato pies.
okay,
But I
okay.
don't know
And-
how much to cover because it's covered with crust, but you can kind of see the apple on apple pies a little bit inside of it.
yes, yes. Now
And
ours you can't you have to trust. It's like there's that whole joke about don't eat a refrigerated gas station pie in South Africa. You never know what you're gonna get. Yeah, so there's that joke. But yeah, okay, so we've discussed the pie, and you say you're a beer drinker, not a whiskey drinker.
no, I'm not a wine drinker. I don't typically drink wine, but the South African wine I've tried is really, really good.
Okay.
And I don't drink that much anyways to begin with, not anymore at least,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't in forever. And but when I was in college, I drank a lot of beer, a lot of whiskey, and a lot of rum. Actually, Coke and rum is a very, very popular drink in America because a lot of Americans like the beach, and a lot of Caribbean countries like Jamaica or the Bahamas. Coke and rum
Yeah.
is very popular, and a lot of Americans, if they can afford it, they go visit a lot of Caribbean destinations, or even you got the beach resorts in America and the bars there, a lot of Coke and rum.
So that would be like Malibu, right? Like
Kind of
Malibu.
Malibu, but like in the South, you have on the Florida Panhandle, you have Destin, Florida, which is popular amongst us Southerners. Pensacola Beach, Florida. But Miami, Florida is pretty popular. And Miami's further down, Miami and Miami Beach in the Florida Peninsula. And that's very popular. If people like Los Angeles is like a 7 or 8 hour flight. Like the United States is the third largest country in the world.
Yeah, it's
like
massive. It's massive.
Like, landmass, we have let me think, Russia, Canada, China, Russia, Canada, then the US. We're the third largest country in the world in terms of landmass.
Yes.
And so many people don't go where I'm from, don't go to LA. I mean, some people have been if they've had to, but because it's so far, they typically don't go, which is why you have Disney California and you have Disney World in Orlando, Florida. Almost everybody where I'm from prefers to go to Disney World. The ones that can afford it go to Disneyland after they've seen Disney World just to see if there's any much of a difference. That's the only reason I afford to.
Okay. Yeah, we had Ratanga Junction, but I mean it's like a pinprick in comparison to probably what you get. And I mean I know in America, I mean your I think the reason Americans are like so exposed, you just have so much of everything. I mean with apartheid here, we didn't have, we had like choice of two, take it or leave it. Those were the choices. you know we had only a few hours of TV, children's TV. I mean what kids are exposed to today compared to when I was growing up is just insurmountable. It's insane. And in America as well, you've got, I mean, like we only started getting what, like also 10, 15 years ago, 2% less and low fat, right? Milk. I know in America you get, I mean, now we obviously have all the different natural milks, but just to give an example, like in America, you've got chocolate milk, fat-free milk, unsugared milk, this milk, sugared milk, flavored, like just thousands, and it's one product.
Milk, non-lactose milk, silk milk. I mean, it is just like we have about at least 20 different kinds of milk. I mean, it's just, and we also have about 10 to 12 different kinds of cheese as well.
Yeah. Oh yes, Ashley says in course 7 Flags theme parks seems every state has one or two. It's Ratanga Junction.
It's called Six Flags, but yeah.
Oh, Six Flags. Okay. Yeah, I know. My tech guy also loves roller coasters. In fact, if he won the lotto, and there was no COVID and we'll have to worry about flights and all this nonsense and going across borders, he'd go to every single theme park in the world and try out their like most hectic roller coasters. I don't know if I'd be on that journey. I'd probably be in the kiddie section. I used to love lots of Daredevil stuff, but as I've gotten older, I'm sort of like more scared. I don't know why. Maybe because I became a mother.
There's a lot of Daredevil stuff I love, but funny story, I have bad imbalance in my inner ears, so there's a lot of rides I can't do or I'll get sick on. So even when I was little, my first choice, what I really wanted to do was to be a fighter pilot in the military, but I knew because of my balance in my ears that I couldn't do that. Like if a ride like goes straight up and then straight down, I think it's really, really fun and it don't move very much, so I don't get sick there. I don't get sick very much. But if it goes upside down, around, in circles, my ears act up and I get really sick.
Oh, shame. Yeah, the last time we went, I think 2 years ago. So my tech guy and my son they're born on the same day. So I decided, okay, well, we haven't been to Gold Reef City forever, which is also like a bit of like Six Flags, but a pinprick. Like I don't know, it's not too bad, but it's not, I'm sure it's nothing compared to the rides and stuff you get there. But yeah, I did most of the rides, but I think we got off, what was it, the Anaconda, and I was properly like, I could feel my center shake. I wasn't too happy to get off. It was fun. So yeah, we're probably going to do that hopefully for something else if we don't go away anytime soon. Okay, so these are the questions. So I took some of these questions and I've amended them, and they come from the Inside the Actor Studio by James Lipton. Okay, I don't know if you ever watched that. We'll finish up probably in the next 10 minutes or sooner. Okay, what is your favorite word?
Okay, my favorite word is sup. It combines what's and up. Sup. Sup.
Sup. Okay, cool. What is your least favorite word?
My least favorite word is probably the K word or the N word. I don't like that racial slur.
100%. Okay, what turns you on?
Okay, well, like, what do you mean in terms of that? Like,
No, like
that,
what gets you excited? What gets you excited?
okay, honestly, what gets me excited is being able to explore new countries, being able to explore new worlds, and seeing different sites. So traveling really gets me excited if the COVID ever gets better. Also,
Yeah.
learning new things that I've never learned before about various places. So that's probably the
Okay.
thing I'm most excited.
Very nice. What turns you off?
Okay, off turns, corruption, serial killers, just evil people in general. That's a big turn off.
Amen. Sounds like a good one. Um, what sound or noise do you love?
Okay, the sound or noise that I love. To be honest with you, oh gosh, that is a very very tough one. If it's not too close to my ears, I like the sound of a lot of fighter jets flying over the whatever building I'm in and being able to see them. Now,
Very
if they're too
cool.
close, as
Very
long as they don't hurt my ears, it's fine.
What's your favorite time of day? Evening or morning?
Okay, well, honestly, because I'm ADHD, this is a very interesting one. The shifts I prefer to work are 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. That's when I'm the most alert. Night when I work the night shift, 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. I'm sleepy and I'm not a nocturnal person. But when
Okay,
I'm
so you
8 to 5, I need a lot of coffee and caffeine to try to focus my brain. So the best
okay,
time
cool.
3 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, what is your favorite curse word?
Okay, my favorite curse word. You asked a question. I know I get flack from this because it's up, but my favorite curse word is motherfucker.
Said it. Well done. Some people just go skip. Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Okay, honestly, all right, good question. I would either like to be a famous writer, or I would like to work in the film industry. My accent would probably keep me away from the acting world, but I would like to do something in terms of the movies, like be a screenwriter or be a consultant for a film or write books. So the writing, the imaginary profession, that's one reason I like going to Disney World. Really kind of, really excites me.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Don't give up on that dream. Look what I'm doing here. This is my dream, sort of to talk to you fine folk, and that's what I'm doing. Okay. If heaven exists, what
Which I
would you
believe
like?
it. You know how strong of a Christian I am, but go ahead.
Okay, no, this is just like a tongue-in-cheek sort of question. It's not a judgment on anyone's religion or anything. So let's just say, if heaven exists, what would you like God to hear you say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Okay, what I want to ask God is, and this you'll find is funny. I said, God, why did you create men and women so different in terms of their minds? Because like men and women, we can't live with each other, but we can't live without each other either.
Booyah! Good one, good one. I think you and TG have so much in common. I mean, he's just loving everything you say. Well, Brett, yeah, I think we can call it an evening. I hope you've had fun.
No, it was
I
a
know
fun
I have, and I've learned a little bit as well.
for tuning in, listening to my loud mouth. I know I can talk loud sometimes and very fast, so thank you to all your viewers as well.
Cool. Thanks, Brett. All right. Stay on the line for 2 minutes. I'm just gonna say goodbye to everybody else. Guys, we'll see you Tuesday again. Hopefully I'll have something fun for you. Anyway, TTFN everybody, thanks for tuning in.
All right,
Bye.
all right, take care, guys. Bye.